How's it going, everyone? Did you have a good holiday? Mine was good, nice and peaceful. With the New Year's around the corner, or maybe it's after New Year's depending on when I get this done, I look back at the channel, proud that I finally started it this year and put up some gameplay videos and some detailed reviews. But I realized something. All of them were mostly positive. Even the bad stuff did get some kind of good review in some way. So I figured, let's end this peaceful time of year with some rage.
You done fucked it up!
Let's do away with the holiday by talking about a game that came out in the summer several years ago. Let's talk about one of the most disappointing games for me, and possibly of all time, Duke Nukem Forever. Duke Nukem. A character initially created by Todd Replogle, head programmer of Apogee Software, his first two adventures were on DOS, but where he truly rose to fame was Duke Nukem 3D, released on PCs in 1996. Inspired heavily by the Hollywood action heroes of the time, you run around Doom-style collecting weapons and blasting your way through legions of aliens and pig mutants, kicking ass and taking babes. As you blew up the aliens and collected keycards throughout the levels, Duke would crack wise and quote famous movie lines, and the level of interactivity you had in the world was quite impressive for the time. It was a major player in popularizing the first-person shooter genre, along with the likes of Doom and Wolfenstein. Duke Nukem 3D even got a remaster for most modern systems in 2016, and it still holds up pretty well. But what we're talking about is the follow-up game with a less than glamorous history. Development of Duke's next adventure started in 1997, and was aiming to be the most advanced FPS ever, titled Duke Nukem Forever, and even got a trailer in 1998 at E3. Things seemed pretty good. But over the course of years, development started and stopped again as technology advanced and games got bigger and better. Developers wanted to keep adding elements from other games into Duke Nukem Forever. The development kept switching hands from 3D Realms to Take-Two to Gearbox, and with the help of TripTech, they finally finished the game, and it was released in 2011. Rounding up, Duke Nukem Forever was in development hell for 15 years. 15 years! But hey, on the outset you'd think, well, if the game's been worked on for so long, surely it must be pretty good, right? Right? My friend, I'm here to tell you no. No, it is not. When Duke Nukem Forever finally released, it was critically panned by critics and the public. Ugly graphics looking years out of date, horrendous performance and gameplay, horrible voice acting and characters, the list goes on. And I, like many a young naive soul, was kicked in the optimistic testicles when it released a few days after my birthday, and I grabbed it from the new releases shelf with my gift cards and allowance in hand. And what I experienced when I got home was nothing but a wave of disappointment and sadness.
What about the game, Duke? Was it any good?
Yeah, but after 12 fucking years, it should be.
But hey, that was years ago. Maybe as a kid, I just didn't get it. Maybe there's something as an adult I can appreciate. Something I missed. Just something about this game to give me a little closure for the wasted money and time. I'm giving you one last chance, Duke, to redeem yourself, to make things right between you and me. Please, don't hurt me again. Please have some good somewhere in your code. Show me you're a better man, Duke, and maybe, just maybe,
I won't destroy you.
Let's take a dive into one of gaming's biggest and longest disappointments. This is Duke Nukem Forever.
This is taking forever. Time to stop pissing around and get this big guy back into action.
So the game starts off with Duke pissing in your eyes. Not a great start. And we play through a rebooted version of the ending of Duke Nukem 3D. We take down the alien emperor and kick his eye through a goalpost. And we find Duke lounging at his penthouse suite with a couple of bad parodies. And on the news, we find that after 12 years since Duke's defeated them, the aliens have returned to Earth, and this event causes Duke's late-night talk show interview to be cancelled. Oh no! Duke gets ordered from the president not to engage the aliens because supposedly they come in peace. 5 seconds later, they start 86ing the whole planet and kidnapping the women to be birthing pods. It's now up to Duke Nukem to rise up again and beat the aliens down, kicking ass and chewing bubblegum along the way. And he's all out of gum. Well, really, he never had any, so he just substitutes gum with pills.
Take your pills, vitamins, every day, and you might grow up to be as awesome as me.
Wow, thank you, Mr. Nukem.
Story-wise, there's really not much here. It's a standard action movie plot of rescue the world, kill the girl, and save the bad guy. Or did I mix that up? Nah, I'm pretty sure that's right. Duke, once again voiced by John St. John, is hailed as a god in human form amongst the public, and is supposedly the greatest badass to ever exist. Supposedly. Throughout the whole game, we see his face plastered everywhere, on restaurants, on billboards, of all of his accomplishments, the spin-offs, the inspired greatness, but in reality, Duke is just a big dork who's frailer than a Fabergé egg. We just go from place to place that really don't have a lot of connections as an army dude screams orders at us.
You go on ahead and take Private Jenkins with you, since he's the only other poor motherfucker who's crazy enough to go with you. I got orders to hold this fucking shit together up here, but Graves wants you at the base of the dam. Drop the fucking GR-44.
If I wanted to be a mindless drone in a shooter campaign, I'd play Call of Duty. This is Duke Nukem here. He's supposed to be so macho he has testosterone instead of blood. A man who's banged more hot chicks than he's had hot dinners. A man whose noun is so verb he verbs the noun. Point being, Duke is supposed to be a pretty neat guy.
There can be only one king. You fuck.
But he comes from the school of being too cool to be cool, which in the end makes him insufferable to listen to. He bangs on about how great he is and how great the game you're playing is, when in actuality, he's just stroking a flaccid ego. And you're stuck with him the whole campaign, which is a bog-standard 9-hour slog from one boring plot point and location to another. For something that was in the works for so long, there was nothing surprising going on here, and being told you're supposed to have tons of fun doesn't really replace the fun. You can't tell me what to do, Duke!
Look at my ass. Do it now.
It's hard to get invested with the character you're playing as when he never actually has a conversation with anyone, despite their detailed history they supposedly have. And when something bad happens to them, he just dismissively writes them off without even the slightest hint of sorrow.
Guess he won't be in the sequel.
At this rate, Duke, neither will you. To be fair, it's not like it's hard not to develop feelings for these characters when they're about as charming as a knife shoved into your urethra.
Yep, thing had titties as big as my Aunt Brenda's. Now what the hell were you doing looking at your aunt's tits? Ain't no harm looking.
But still, if Duke can't get invested in what's going on around him, why should I be? A character spouts one-liners. One-liners do not create a character all on their own. There's gotta be more to Duke than quotes taken from other things and making fun of characters from other games when he's got nothing going on for himself.
Duke, we've got your green power armor over here and ready to go.
Power armor is for pussies.
You're a fucking asshole.
Across the years, Duke Nukem Forever has taken on many different shapes, from a 2D platformer in the same vein as the originals, then moved to the Quake 2 engine, and then moved again to the Unreal Engine. With the look and design changing so much from the different engines and the increases in graphics technology, how is Duke Nukem Forever going to stand out visually? Well, I regret to inform you, it doesn't. Shooters that use a lot of muted colors like Gears of War and Call of Duty get a lot of crap for it, because people claim that it just looks boring and bad. Well, in Gears of War, yes, the colors may be bland, but they're attached to some well-designed architecture and have a lot of detail put into the many neoclassical-style buildings and ruins. The series is brimming with unique detail in its architecture, but I'll go into that some more another time. Meanwhile, in Duke Nukem Forever, there is no detail, and the solid colors make the gray city concrete and brown desert sand even more lifeless than it should be. Nothing about this game looks particularly good. From generic city buildings to the standard-looking construction areas, there's no discernible markings or pathways, so you don't know where to go, and you waste so much time just trying to figure out if you're going the right way, or if you just end up getting turned around. The wet, gross caves of the aliens that even if you have your brightness turned up are still so dark you can't see anything, and everything looks the same or is so similar you can get lost because you can't tell if you've already been to this area or not. Even when there is color and you have somewhat of an idea of where you're going, like Duke's Lady Killer Casino, it still looks terrible. There's this sickly yellow tint to it, like Duke just pissed all over the lighting, which, knowing him, he probably did. If they at least had some good texturing or some interesting details, maybe this could be somewhat forgiven. But everything looks so standard and visually basic that Gears of War, which came out in 2006, still looks better than this game that came out 5 years later. And despite the lack of detail, the game still has near constant frame rate drops. I'm playing the Xbox 360 version and it's completely updated, but it overall runs horribly, and it can make it difficult to deal with the fast-moving enemies running all around you. And then there's the character models that are just ugly. Ugly, ugly, ugly. Everyone just stares at you with their dead sunken eyes, and they're either standing so still you think they just died on screen, or they're moving around so much and so unnaturally, you wonder who the real aliens are, the ones invading or the ones that you're trying to save. Look at this kid. He looks like they took an adult model and then just shrunk it, and everyone just sounds so obnoxiously bad. The voice acting is so wooden and so ear-gratingly obnoxious, I just want to shoot them just to get them to stop talking. But it doesn't work. Trust me, I tried.
So tiny. What the hell? I know right where I'd stick him.
Sweet. It really is you, Duke.
We need you, Duke. Now more than ever.
Holy shit, what a fucking mess! He's gonna fucking shit his pants when he sees this! I've gotta head out to the dam. We need to get to the fucking Duke Dome.
America is counting on you.
America, fuck yeah!
And there's some great voice talent in this too. Christopher Sabat, Ian Sinclair, Jennifer Green, but everyone just sounds so lifeless and uninterested. Maybe that's why Steve Bloom and Brina Palencia are uncredited in the IMDb page. They don't want people to know they were in this train wreck. Even John St. John, who I've praised in the past, doesn't seem like he's bringing his A-game.
I'm not finished with you, octopussy.
At the very least, I could warm up to Duke if he's trying to sound cool but comes off as dorky in a dated way. I could humor him like that, but half the time his lines sound like he's a teenage boy whining that his mom dragged him to go shopping. And that's not a great tone to have when you're bragging about how great you are and trying to save the world from an alien invasion. Some of the one-liners work and sound somewhat invested, but the good ones are too few and far between. So what more is there to say about how Duke Nukem presents himself? Well, everything that Duke says when he picks up a wet turd.
Why am I doing this? This is gross. I gotta get rid of this. What the fuck? No, what am I doing? What the hell? No! Come on, no! This is disgusting!
So if Duke as a character is a dud, and the game artistically looks worse than something from 1996, there's still the gameplay to save the day. Destiny was held up by its fantastic gameplay despite its lack of in-game story and character, so maybe Duke Nukem Forever can pull something similar. DNF is a first-person shooter, as you probably guessed. You can hold 2 guns at a time and switch between them, ranging from pistols, shotguns, RPGs, shrink rays, freeze rays, and occasional alien tech. However, in keeping with the theme of this game not having nothing unique, these weapons are as generic and standard as you'd find in any other generic and standard game, and they're terribly weak feeling at that. Your guns don't feel like they have much power to them, so even after peppering your enemies with bullets, they don't seem to slow down until they decide they are now dead and ragdoll like their skeletons just disappeared. Bombs are kind of fun to use, but you gotta be careful so you don't trip your own trip mine. Duke has other tools binded to the D-pad. Duke Vision, which allows him to see in the dark areas, the single-use items like holograms, beer to increase your damage resistance at the cost of lowered perception, and steroids, which give you a major attack boost. These can be useful at times, but they're single-use and don't last very long, and if you end up using it against a wave of pig cops only for the second wave to be flying enemies, that pretty much goes to waste. DNF also has a physics engine that seems to be pulled straight from Half-Life, but it still works pretty well. You can pick up and throw objects to kill enemies or interact with the environment, and smacking things can send them flying. There are some brief blips of needing to move or break something in order to press on, but these spots are so scarce you forget they even happened. Plus, smacking stuff can also lead to some pretty nonsensical deaths. So Duke Nukem 3D was famous for how you interacted with the world, buttons and switches that open secrets, transform the world, and just as a means of goofing off. Duke Nukem Forever carries on that tradition, and it ties it to your health in the form of Duke's ego. If you poke around each level, there will be things that increase your ego the first time you interact with them. These range from lifting weights, shooting hoops, playing arcade games like pinball and air hockey, admiring yourself in the mirror, and doing other dumb stuff. And I mean really dumb stuff. You're going to need to keep a keen eye out for these ego boosts because you're going to need them. I played through DNF on Let's Rock difficulty, which is the medium setting, and I died many times. From the aforementioned bomb and physics mishaps, you can also get swarmed by enemies pretty easily, and your field of view is so close up and the frame rate dips so much that when you start getting attacked by melee enemies, by the time you turn yourself around to aim, you'll probably be already dead. And then there's the platforming. Duke will often find himself jumping from small beams and small platforms, and most likely falling off them because you can't see your feet and dropping into whatever hazard lies below. This is usually a frequent means of getting around, and it can range from boring to frustrating. At this point, I've ragged on pretty much everything, so you may ask, is there anything I did like? Well, there are a few sections where Duke gets shrunken, and this usually leads to some of the more interesting and better designed platforming bits, and the best vehicle section of the game in which Duke takes the wheel of a souped up RC car. And even his full-size truck has a few cool set pieces, but those are constantly interrupted by running out of fuel and you having to take obnoxious detours on foot to find more fuel and then rinse and repeat until you just trash the car.
Oh, and it got such good gas mileage.
But in the end, it all leads back to Duke, who despite all his bragging about being godlike, he's frailer than BJ Blazkowicz in the first half of New Colossus. Even on medium, you lose health so quickly from even the minor enemies. In a few hits, you can be knocked down to the red, and with nowhere to run or hide, you'll get killed quickly. But then again, why should we run and hide? If we're playing as Duke Nukem, we should be able to take on anyone, anytime. But as much as Duke gets talked up, he never enforces that he's as powerful as people say he is. He gets killed like a chump easily, and when you run, he gets literally winded. Oh, he can't be overpowered, then it's not challenging, I've heard some argue. Oh, the bragging is just jokes, it doesn't have to be true. But Duke Nukem should feel like a power fantasy because he was inspired by power fantasies. He should be able to fight large waves of enemies without breaking a sweat, because everyone says he can. The game is telling you that if you're not playing it in a running and gunning ass-kicking way, you're doing it wrong. But when Duke has a worse reaction to bullets than a large pane of glass, and a good chunk of the level transitions are of Duke waking up from being knocked out, you can't get into that mindset. The ego you've got by the end of the game, if you find a majority of the boosters, should have been what you started with. Then you might actually stand a chance in the early game, and you'd have a load more health by the time you reach the frustrating end sections. But with Duke's actual ego, the bar should go off screen and come back around like the Undertale dog. And then there's the bosses, which are about as inspired as the rest of the game, as in not at all. They're either reused multiple times or just big versions of the basic enemies. Well, one is just a basic enemy, you're just tiny. And all these fights just come down to you using the limitless supplies of explosives nearby and bombing them until they fall and Duke can do whatever humiliating thing he's got planned. That's repeated too, by the way. Even the Alien Emperor boss is repeated, but we're getting to that.
I've got a bad feeling about this.
So Duke makes his way to the Hoover Dam that the aliens are using to power their portal to Earth. After Duke blows up the dam, causing God knows how much more damage, he wakes up to find the president waiting in rage. He apparently worked a deal with the aliens so he could take over the world. Your guess is as good as mine as how that plan was supposed to work, so he sets up a nuke to drop right on top of Duke to finish him off. Why not just have your Agent Smiths just shoot him? Either way, it looks like we're on track for a happy ending. But the alien emperor shows up and kills the president, and we begin the final boss fight, which was the first boss fight, but also the final boss fight in the other game. So we run around avoiding the minions because they're the actual threats in this fight, blast them with RPG rockets until the army drops off something that does less damage. You defeat the emperor, and Duke fulfills his promise.
I'm gonna rip your eye out and piss on your brain, you alien dirtbag!
I think that's what he said to everyone who pre-ordered this game. The general comes in to get Duke out of there, but the nuke drops and we cut to black. Only to get a fake out that says Duke dies, immediately for him to reveal he's not dead. And one final cutscene where Duke declares he's now going to run for president.
Hail to the king, baby.
Insert Donald Trump joke here about a blonde egotist in politics, and let's just move on with our lives. So in case I didn't come across clearly enough, let me reiterate. Duke Nukem Forever is a damn nuclear failure. A nothing story, annoying and bland characters, complemented by the uninteresting levels and the poor design. Gunplay that's about as satisfying as squinting your eyes, shaking your head, and making bang noises. And a main character who's so self-satisfied with himself despite earning nothing. And it's a shame because I'm sure that the people working on this game did try and did what they could with what they had, but it just didn't work. This isn't how the story should end. After all the years of waiting and the work, and the final project should have been something else. At least some kind of cult hit or something that's not good but worth a look.
Yeah, but after 12 fucking years, it should be.
But it's such a train wreck, and yet it's so pleased with itself, it actually feels like the game is actively insulting you for playing it. In a year where so many great games came out in, Duke Nukem Forever is an ugly blotch on that list, and serves as a permanent reminder that time is no guarantee for quality. Fail to the king, baby.
What kind of shit ending is that?